Did medieval queens with their dazzling crowns and formidable power actually hide unimaginable treasures? What if 7 breathtaking riches once held by the most influential women of the Middle Ages from the 6th century to the late 15th century are still out there waiting for modern science to unearth them? Number 7. Theodora's Imperial Jewels of Byzantium. The year 532 CE was a moment of terrifying crisis for the Byzantine Empire, and for its brilliant capital, Constantinople. The Nika riots had exploded with unimaginable ferocity, transforming the city's hippodrome into a bloody battleground, and its streets into raging infernos. Emperor Justinian I, the powerful ruler of the East, found himself trembling on the verge of fleeing, his own palace ready to abandon his throne and his city to the mob. It was in this desperate hour that a figure of extraordinary courage and intellect stepped forward, changing the course of history with a single, defiant speech. This was his empress, Theodora. Born into humble origins as an actress and courtesan, Theodora had ascended to heights of power rarely seen for a woman in her era. Her words, sharp as a dagger and imbued with an unyielding spirit, rallied her husband. "Royalty is a magnificent burial shroud," she famously declared, shaming Justinian and his advisors into staying, fighting, and ultimately crushing the rebellion, thereby saving his empire. Theodora was more than just an empress. She was a co-ruler in all but name, participating actively in statecraft, influencing legislation, and even engaging in theological debates that shaped the future of Eastern Christianity. She championed the rights of women, enacting laws against forced prostitution and supporting the establishment of refuges. Her patronage of the arts and architecture was immense, contributing to the construction of awe-inspiring structures like the magnificent Hagia Sophia, a testament to Byzantine splendor. Her position as empress, however, also brought her immense personal wealth, and Theodora was known for her exquisite taste and her formidable collection of personal treasures. These were not mere trinkets but powerful symbols of her imperial authority and the empire's unparalleled riches. Among her most cherished possessions were her imperial jewels, a collection that went far beyond mere adornments. These were elaborate diadems, intricately woven with pearls, deep green emeralds, and luminous sapphires, each gem seemingly holding the light of the sun. Brooches, crafted with delicate gold filigree and adorned with cabochon rubies that glowed with an inner fire, pinned her imperial robes. Belts, heavy with gleaming gemstones, cinched her waist, each piece a masterpiece of Byzantine artistry, designed to proclaim the empress's divine right and the empire's seemingly limitless glory. Ancient chronicles, passed down through generations of scribes and historians, sometimes described them as rivers of light, or stars fallen to earth, reflecting the very majesty of God in the eyes of her subjects and visiting dignitaries. The Nika riots were just one dramatic episode in a reign that was constantly challenged by political intrigue, assassination plots, and persistent threats from invading forces on the empire's borders. Theodora, with her keen understanding of power, dynamics, and practical realities, was acutely aware that immense wealth, while a source of strength, was also a constant target. She would have understood the inherent vulnerability of the imperial treasury, especially during periods of civil unrest or foreign invasion. Whispers have persisted through history, never fully substantiated, but intensely compelling, that Theodora maintained a contingency plan, a secret cache for her most precious, truly irreplaceable jewels. These were likely pieces that held not only staggering material value, but also profound spiritual or dynastic significance. Such items, unlike the general imperial regalia that was often displayed publicly, would have been considered the portable essence of imperial power, capable of being moved and hidden at capture or destruction. One persistent legend speaks of the Amulet of Serenity, a large, flawless sapphire rumored to have been ancient, even in Theodora's time, said to bring peace into the empire itself. Another captivating story describes the Girdle of the Theotokos, a sacred belt adorned with hundreds of small ancient pearls, believed to have been touched by the Virgin Mary herself. This relic would have held immense spiritual importance, a direct connection to the divine, making it an object of unparalleled veneration and a prime candidate for secret preservation. These were not items to be left exposed in the palace vaults. Vulnerable to looting during a siege or seizure by a treacherous court faction, Theodora continued to exert immense influence until her death in 548 CE. Her passing left an undeniable void in the empire's leadership. While many of her personal treasures and the broader imperial collection would have been absorbed into the successive imperial treasuries passed down through generations of Byzantine emperors and empresses, detailed historical records hint at a different fate for her most personal and profoundly symbolic pieces. Unlike other documented crown jewels and regalia which can be traced through centuries of imperial inventories and ceremonial records, the Amulet of Serenity and the Girdle of the Theotokos disappear from explicit historical accounts after Theodora's death. This sudden absence fuels the speculation that they were not simply reabsorbed into the general treasury, but were deliberately set aside, perhaps hidden with a specific purpose. Plausible that Theodora, renowned for her sharp mind and practical foresight, established secret caches not only for protection during wartime but possibly to fund Clafgard, Atan's potential pobdation. The secret of their hiding entrusted to a select few loyalists might have been lost with their deaths, swallowed by the passage of time and the constant flux of political power in Constantinople. Centuries have since passed, and the magnificent city of Constantinople itself ultimately fell to the Ottoman Turks in 1453 CE. The conquest was a brutal affair, leading to the widespread looting, destruction, and dispersion of countless Byzantine treasures. While numerous Byzantine artifacts have eventually surfaced in museums, the truly legendary pieces, those specifically associated with Theodora's unique personal collection and imbued with such profound symbolic meaning, remain stubbornly elusive. Modern archaeology and historical research continue to pore over fragmented ancient texts, looking for any cryptic clues, any whispered hints of their location. Teams employ cutting-edge technologies, like ground-penetrating radar, to scan beneath the ancient ruins of the Great Palace of Constantinople, where the imperial family resided, searching for hidden passages, subterranean chambers, or sealed-off vaults that might have served as secret escape routes or secure storage for imperial wealth. Divers have even explored the murky depths of the Golden Horn, the city's natural harbor, working under the theory that some treasures might have been jettisoned in desperation during moments of siege or panic. Scholars meticulously translate obscure Byzantine chronicles, hagiographies, and private letters seeking any mention, however fleeting or metaphorical, of unusual movements of imperial treasure. Istanbul, the modern city built upon the ancient foundations of Constantinople, has been continuously rebuilt and redeveloped over millennia, burying layers of history under concrete asphalt and new structures. Powerful earthquakes have repeatedly shaken the region, further altering the landscape, collapsing ancient structures, and potentially burying or shifting any hidden caches. Yet, the allure of Theodora's personal jewels, particularly the Amulet of Serenity, with its legendary powers of peace, and the Girdle of the Theotokos, with its sacred pearls, continues to drive the search. Historians debate whether these were actual physical objects, or perhaps highly symbolic metaphors for imperial power and spiritual influence. The descriptions found in the oldest surviving texts are often too vivid, too specific, and too imbued with physical detail, suggesting tangible objects of immense value and singular importance. While archaeologists have uncovered numerous caches of coins and everyday valuables from the Byzantine era, nothing approaching the scale or significance of Theodora's legendary personal collection has ever been definitively found. The quest for Theodora's imperial jewels of Byzantium, continues a phantom glint of sapphire and pearl beneath the layers of history, patiently waiting to be rediscovered. The story of her life, her unwavering strength, and her enigmatic treasures ensures that the ongoing quest for these lost symbols of a vanished empire remains one of the most compelling and enduring mysteries of the medieval world. The very idea that such artifacts steeped in the power and legacy of one of history's most remarkable empresses could still be waiting beneath the ancient stones of Istanbul keeps the hope alive for those who dare to seek them, a whispered secret carried through the centuries. Number 6. Adelaide of Susa's Alpine Gold Hoard. The early 11th century in northern Italy was a tumultuous and fragmented landscape, a patchwork of competing feudal lords, ambitious bishops, and powerful families, all vying for control of strategic territories and vital trade routes. Amidst this volatile scene, a woman of extraordinary power, wealth, and political cunning rose to prominence. Adelaide of Susa. Born around 1014, she was not a queen by royal title, but she commanded power and influence far exceeding that of many crowned monarchs of her era. She was the last and most powerful ruler of the March of Turin and Susa, a sprawling territory that crucially controlled the vital Alpine passes, connecting Italy to the burgeoning kingdoms of France and Burgundy. These passes, including the treacherous Mont Cenis and Great St. Bernard passes, were not merely pathways for armies. They were the bustling arteries laden with exotic goods, pilgrims seeking holy sites, and diplomats carrying messages of peace and war, all paying lucrative tolls that swelled Adelaide's coffers to bursting. She inherited her family's vast lands and considerable influence, but she dramatically expanded her dominion through shrewd diplomacy, calculated military strength, and a series of highly strategic marriages to powerful counts. Adelaide was far from a passive noblewoman. She personally led armies into battle, skillfully negotiated complex treaties, and intricated the role of kingmaker in the intricate and often brutal politics of the Holy Roman Empire. An unprecedented feat for a woman in her time. Adelaide's formidable power was inextricably linked to her incredible wealth. The March of Turin and Susa was quite literally a gold mine, its mountainous terrain yielding precious metals and its strategic location generating enormous revenues from tolls and taxes. Her numerous castles, such as the imposing fortresses of Susa and Bard, were not only formidable defensive strongholds, but also served as major administrative centers, where vast quantities of taxes were collected and stored. Chroniclers of the period, whose writings have survived in fragment form, spoke of Adelaide's unfathomable riches, describing her personal treasury as exceeding that of many kings and emperors of her age. This immense wealth included not just vast quantities of gleaming gold and silver coinage, but also a breathtaking array of precious artifacts. Her collection boasted ancient Roman jewelry, sometimes rediscovered from local excavations, exquisite Lombardic craftsmanship, shimmering Byzantine silk, vestments imported from the East, and rare illuminated manuscripts purchased from distant lands. Among these persistent legends specifically mention a unique collection of Alpine gold artifacts. These were not simply melted down for coinage. They were kept as revered family heirlooms, their designs reflecting ancient spiritual beliefs, their craftsmanship unique and predating Roman influence, perhaps even Celtic in origin. One captivating account speaks of a sun-disk of the Druids, a circular gold plate intricately carved with cryptic symbols said to emanate a warm, subtle light, hinting at an unusual alloy or perhaps a very early understanding of phosphorescence. Another mentions a dragon's tooth necklace, a massive, imposing piece composed of heady golden links shaped like mythical dragon's tails, each adorned with a polished, dark stone. Believed to ward off evil, and confer protection upon its wearer. These were objects of immense historical and perhaps even mystical value, far exceeding their mere weight in pure gold. Adelaide's long and successful reign was characterized by constant political maneuvering and an ever-present need to defend her territories. Her alliances shifted with the winds of power, and she faced persistent threats from ambitious neighbors, including the Holy Roman Emperor himself, Henry IV. In 1068, Henry IV, desperate to secure his passage through the Alps for his marriage and coronation in Rome, found himself in a precarious standoff with Adelaide. She controlled the crucial mountain passes and was hesitant to grant him unhindered access without significant political and financial concessions. This tense confrontation, which culminated in the famous scene at Canossa in 1077, where Henry IV famously begged Pope Gregory VII for forgiveness in the snow directly involved. She played a pivotal role in mediating the dispute, shrewdly leveraging her immense power and her absolute control of the critical mountain route. During such tumultuous times, with armies marching across her lands and loyalties constantly uncertain, it was a common and essential practice for powerful rulers to secure their most precious assets. Adelaide, known for her pragmatism, her strategic foresight, and her unyielding resolve, would have undoubtedly taken extreme measures to protect her extraordinary wealth from seizure or plunder by rival factions or invading forces. The vast network of her castles and fortified settlements across the Alpine valleys provided countless potential hiding places. The enduring legend of Adelaide's hidden treasure suggests that during one of these periods of intense political instability, perhaps specifically during Henry IV's desperate negotiations, or when she herself was campaigning against a rebellious lord, she ordered a significant portion of her personal treasury. To be secretly tifted. This cache included not only the unique Alpine gold artifacts, but possibly also a vast reserve of coinage and other valuable items. This was not merely a temporary measure, a short-term storage solution. The secrecy surrounding its location was so profound that details were meticulously erased from official records and lost to history, perhaps intentionally, kept secret even from her own children to prevent its seizure by potential rivals or even by less trustworthy descendants. The stories whispered through the generations claim that only a handful of her most trusted personal guards knew the exact location. These loyal retainers were either killed in subsequent skirmishes, their knowledge perishing with them, or they pledged an eternal vow of silence, carrying the secret to their graves, ensuring the treasure's ultimate security. The sun disk of the Druids and the dragon's tooth necklace, being unique and instantly recognizable, would have been prime targets for any conqueror or looter, making their discreet hiding an absolute and urgent priority. Centuries later, the rugged, often unforgiving terrain of the Piedmontese Alps continues to guard its many secrets. Modern archaeologists and historians, intrigued by the persistent local legends and the well-documented extent of Adelaide's astonishing wealth, have launched ambitious projects to find this legendary hoard. They are not merely looking for gold as a precious metal, they are seeking tangible connections to a remarkable woman, her ancient and powerful lineage, and the unique cultural heritage of the region. Geologists use sophisticated mapping techniques, including lidar and seismic surveys, to identify potential subterranean passages, natural caves, and hidden tunnels that could have been modified for secure storage. Historians meticulously pore over fragmented medieval land deeds, obscure monastic records, and local folklore passed down through generations, searching for any unusual references, cryptic annotations, or onyx poemes. Local amateur treasure hunters, driven by the thrill of discovery, continue to use metal detectors in remote and often dangerous areas of her former territories, though often with little success, and regrettably some to inadvertently damaging archaeologically sensitive sites. The search for Adelaide's hoard is fraught with immense challenges. The Alps are a vast, complex, and unforgiving landscape, prone to landslides, rockfalls, and seismic activity, which could have easily buried or shifted ancient hiding spots over the centuries. Many of Adelaide's numerous castles and fortifications have either fallen into complete ruin, their original structures irrevocably altered, or been entirely destroyed over time. However, the tantalizing clues from medieval chronicles, detailing the astonishing scale of her riches and her legendary cunning nature, continued to fuel the ongoing quest. There are persistent whispers about specific potential locations, such as the deep, unexplored cellars beneath the ruined heap of a small, forgotten fortress near Bard, or a complex cave system accessible only from a hidden entrance high on a cliff face over domain. The precise value of such a find would be incalculable, extending far beyond the material worth of precious metals. It would offer unparalleled historical and archaeological into one of the most powerful women of the medieval age, and, crucially, into the mysterious pre-Roman artifacts she possessed. The Alpine gold artifacts, if found, would undoubtedly redefine our understanding of ancient Italian craftsmanship, early trade networks, and cultural connections that predate recorded history. Quest for Adelaide of Susa's Alpine gold hoard continues. A silent challenge issued by a powerful medieval queen to those who dare to seek her long-lost legacy in the rugged, secret heart of the Alps. The mountains, it is said, still whisper of gold, a treasure hidden by a queen who defied the conventions of her age and secured her secrets within the very earth. Number 5. Ermengarde of Narbonne's Provençal relics. The Languedoc region of southern France in the 12th century was a place of vibrant cultural exchange, intellectual flourishing, and unique social structures distinct from the more centralized power of the French crown. It was a region where the Occitan language thrived, where troubadours composed their exquisite poetry of courtly love, and where a sophisticated, often independent society blossomed. At the very heart of this rich and complex world stood Ermengarde of Narbonne, a formidable viscountess who ruled from 1134 to 1194. Although she did not hold the title of a crowned queen, her immense power, vast wealth, and profound political influence easily surpassed that of many monarchs of her era. She was widely recognized as a brilliant diplomat, a generous patron of the arts and sciences, and a shrewd politician who masterfully navigated the treacherous waters of medieval power, successfully maintaining her independence amidst the competing ambitions of the kings of France, the Counts of Toulouse, and the King of Aragon. Her court in Narbonne was renowned as a leading center of learning and chivalry, attracting scholars, poets, and knights from across the length and breadth of Europe. She was celebrated for her sharp intellectual curiosity, her exceptional legal acumen, and her strong, decisive, and remarkably effective rule. Ermengarde's wealth was truly legendary, derived from her sprawling territories, her absolute control over crucial trade routes that crisscrossed her lands, and her family's ancient and venerable lineage. But beyond her material riches, Ermengarde was a fervent and dedicated collector of religious relics. This was a common, indeed widespread, practice among powerful medieval nobles and monarchs who believed that such sacred objects conferred divine favor, legitimacy, and spiritual protection. Ermengarde's personal collection of relics was said to be exceptional in its scope, its rarity, and its profound spiritual significance. It encompassed pieces believed to have been brought back from the Holy Land by crusaders, fragments allegedly from early Christian martyrs, and even objects with claimed direct links to biblical figures. These were not simply humble bones housed in plain containers. They were often encased in exquisitely crafted reliquaries made from shimmering gold, lustrous silver, and precious stones, masterpieces of medieval artistry that were, themselves, invaluable. One particularly famous rumored item was the chalice of St. Lazarus, said to be the actual cup used by Lazarus of Bethany during his earthly life. This chalice was believed to possess potent healing properties and was intensely venerated. Another, even more intriguing and debated, was the Shroud of Mary Magdalene, described not as a full burial shroud, but as a piece of fine linen, possibly a head covering, said to have been used to wrap her head. It was reputedly embroidered with ancient, intricate symbols and was said to emit a faint, incredibly sweet and ethereal aroma. These were items of incalculable spiritual, historical, and artistic worth, drawing countless pilgrims and scholars alike to Narbonne, making her court a spiritual magnet. Political landscape of the Languedoc, while culturally rich and vibrant, was also incredibly volatile and increasingly dangerous. The growing power of the Capetian French crown in the north began to cast an increasingly long and ominous shadow over the independent southern territories. Moreover, the region was soon to be embroiled in the devastating Albigensian Crusade, a brutal and prolonged religious war launched by the Catholic Church against the Cathar heresy, which had gained significant traction in the Languedoc. Ermengarde, despite being a staunch and devout Catholic herself, had to skillfully navigate this complex religious and political storm, constantly striving to protect her people, her lands, and her unique cultural heritage from the escalating conflict. She understood implicitly that her sacred relics, while providing immense spiritual protection and prestige, also made her a prime target. They could be seized by her enemies, used to legitimize rival territorial claims, or simply looted and desecrated during periods of intense conflict. Sometime around 1192, just 2 years before her death, and as the ominous shadows of the Albigensian Crusade began to lengthen across the Languedoc, Ermengarde made a decision that has baffled historians for centuries. She formally abdicated her rule, passing her titles and territories to her nephew, Peter of Aragon. The precise reasons for her abdication are still debated among scholars. Some attribute it to her advancing age and declining health, while others suggest intense political pressure or strategic withdrawal from an increasingly dangerous situation. But what truly happened to her most prized, unique, and spiritually significant relics, unlike other treasures which would have been absorbed into the family's patrimony or integrated into church collections, the chalice of St. Lazarus and the Shroud of Mary Magdalene vanished entirely from detailed historical records after her abdication. Local legends passed down orally through generations speak of Ermengarde and her profound wisdom and remarkable foresight, personally ordering the discreet and meticulous hiding of her most sacred and irreplaceable relics. This was not a simple act of temporary storage. It was a deliberate and calculated act of profound concealment, perhaps designed to prevent them from falling into the wrong hands during the religious strife. She clearly foresaw, or to protect them from the escalating political ambitions of northern lords who might seek to seize control of her region. The stories suggest that she entrusted this profound secret to an extremely small circle of her most loyal clergy, or trusted carried out the concealment with the utmost secrecy, ensuring that the exact location would be known only to this select few, or even lost entirely upon their deaths. A secret carried to the grave, it is highly plausible that she wished to safeguard these spiritually significant items from potential desecration, misuse, or outright destruction during the turbulent times that lay ahead for her beloved Languedoc. Centuries later, the search for Ermengarde's Provençal relics continues with unwavering dedication, driven by historians, archaeologists, and religious scholars from around the world. The region of Narbonne is a treasure trove of medieval ruins, ancient churches, and forgotten monastic sites, making it a prime, albeit challenging area for archaeological investigation. Teams employ cutting-edge technologies, including highly sensitive graves to investigate anomalies detected beneath the floors of ancient cathedrals, within the foundations of ruined castles, and within the grounds of former monasteries, looking for hidden crypts, sealed chambers, or unusual burial sites. Historians meticulously comb through vast monastic archives, dusty papal bulls, and obscure local land records, searching for any unusual entries, coded messages, or cryptic references that might hint at the relic's precise fate or hidden location. The medieval town of Narbonne itself, with its deep and layered history, presents a particular challenge. Modern construction often sits directly atop centuries of buried secrets, making exploration critter pikes. The allure of these relics is immense, not only for their potential material value, but, far more importantly, for their unparalleled historical and spiritual significance. The discovery of the Chalice of St. Lazarus would provide an unprecedented glimpse into early Christian artifacts, the daily practices of the faithful, and the veneration of saints. In the medieval period, the Shroud of Mary Magdalene, if it indeed exists, would be a discovery of global religious and historical significance, potentially offering new insights into early Christian beliefs, the lives of biblical figures, and the textile arts of antiquity. While numerous relics from the medieval period exist in churches and museums, the specific provenance of these items and the highly unusual circumstances of Ermengarde's deliberate hiding of them make them uniquely compelling. There are persistent rumors of a sealed chamber beneath the former Benedictine Abbey of Sainte-Marie de Fontfraude, a site known to have been heavily patronized by Ermengarde and renowned for its remote and secure location. Other theories point to a hidden compartment within the very walls of the Archbishop's Palace in Narbonne, itself a heavily fortified and religiously significant structure. The very fact that such profoundly important artifacts, once central to the spiritual life of a powerful ruler and her entire region, could disappear so completely and without a trace, only deepens the mystery and intensifies the desire to find them. Quest for Ermengarde of Narbonne's Provençal relics continues, a whispered prayer for revelation in the sun-drenched ancient landscape of southern France, a testament to a queen of extraordinary influence and her enduring sacred secrets. Number 4. Philippa of Hainault's Royal Manuscript, Cache. The mid-14th century was a defining era for England, embroiled in the early, brutal, and prolonged years of the 100 Years' War. It was a time of epic battles, complex political maneuvering, but also, surprisingly, a period of significant cultural and intellectual flourishing. At the very heart of this vibrant and often turbulent court, ruling alongside her formidable husband, King Edward III, was Philippa of Hainault. Born around 1314 in what is now Belgium, she was an extraordinary queen consort universally admired for her intelligence, her deep piety, her remarkable kindness, and her unwavering loyalty. She famously defied expectations by accompanying Edward III on challenging military campaigns, acting as regnant in his absence, and even personally leading an army to a decisive victory against the Scots at the Battle of Neville's Cross in 1346. Beyond her political and military prowess, Philippa was a passionate patron of learning and a keen collector, actively fostering trade and industry, and famously sponsoring the education of young scholars, including the future literary giant of young scholar. Philippa's influence extended far beyond the traditional spheres of politics and warfare. She possessed a profound love for literature, and crucially for illuminated manuscript. In an age where books were incredibly rare and precious commodities, each one a painstaking work of art, meticulously crafted by skilled scribes and illuminators over months or even years, Philippa amassed a personal library that was considered the envy of Europe. Her collection was not merely for passive display. She was known to actively read, study, and cherish these works, commissioning new ones from the finest artisans and acquiring ancient texts from various European centers of learning. These manuscripts were not just historical records or religious texts. Many were exquisite pieces of art in their own right, often bound in covers adorned with jewels, their vellum pages ascive with vibrant miniature paintings, gilded letters that shimmered with gold, and intricate, delicate designs that showcased the pinnacle of medieval craftsmanship. Her collection included theological treatises, inspiring hagiographies, thrilling chivalric romances, and ancient histories. Among her most treasured possessions, whispered about in the court and documented in fragment accounts, were said to be a Book of Hours of St. Margaret, a small, portable prayer book of unparalleled beauty, Saint's Life, its cover studded with tiny, lustrous pearls and a large deep purple central amethyst pearls and the large deep purple central amethyst. Another was a unique multi-volume chronicle of King Arthur, rumored to contain previously unknown Arthurian legends, its pages depicting scenes of Camelot and the Round Table with breathtaking realism. And Amulet, these weren't mere books. They were cultural monuments, invaluable repositories of knowledge and profound expressions of deep spiritual and artistic devotion. The 100 Years' War, while bringing periods of military glory to Edward III and England, also brought constant and profound threats to the kingdom's security and stability. Frequent raids by the French along the southern coast, persistent rebellions in the north, and the ever-present terrifying danger of devastating epidemics, particularly the catastrophic Black Death that swept through Europe. In the mid-14th century, royal residences, even the seemingly impregnable Tower of London, were theoretically vulnerable to attack, siege, or accidental destruction. Philippa, with her practical nature and far-sighted perspective, understood the fragility of even the most secure locations during times of war and disease. Her personal library, especially the truly irreplaceable Book of Hours of St. Margaret and the multi-volume Chronicle of King Arthur, would have been a prime concern for safekeeping. Losing these unique cultural treasures, either to fire, looting, or decay, would have been an immeasurable blow to her legacy, to the intellectual heritage of England, and to the advancement of learning. Historical accounts suggest that as the Black Death raged with horrifying ferocity across England in the late 1340s and early 1350s, causing widespread social upheaval and the loss of countless lives, Philippa took extraordinary and irreplaceable treasures. Many noble families and monastic houses across Europe attempted to preserve their precious books and documents by relocating them to remote, supposedly safer locations, or by sealing them away in secure, hidden repositories. Philippa, perhaps fearing not only the physical destruction of her cherished manuscripts, but also the catastrophic loss of the skilled scribes, illuminators, and binders who could reproduce them, is widely believed to have orchestrated the careful and clandestine and irreplaceable volumes. The prevalent theory suggests that she ordered a significant portion of her personal manuscript collection, specifically the legendary Arthurian Chronicle and the exquisitely illuminated prayer book, to be placed in a secret cache. This cache was not located within the well-known accessible royal libraries, but rather in a location known only to herself and a handful of her most absolutely trusted and unshakable confidants. The primary intent was to protect them from disease contamination, accidental fire, or deliberate enemy action, ensuring their survival until safer, more stable times. The secret surrounding this hiding place was so meticulously guarded that it became utterly lost to history. Perhaps with the deaths of those few individuals entrusted with the knowledge, or simply overshadowed and forgotten amidst the overwhelming scale of the plague. Centuries later, the search for Philippa of Hainault's royal manuscript cache continues to fascinate historians, literary scholars, and bibliophiles worldwide. The sheer historical and artistic value of finding the Chronicle of King Arthur with the exquisite Book of Hours of St. Margaret would be immeasurable, potentially rewriting aspects of medieval literary history. Modern research efforts focus on various potential sites linked to Philippa's life and reign. Teams of archaeologists and architectural historians utilize advanced technologies such as lidar, light detection and ranging, and photogrammetry to survey the remaining structures of Philippa's favored royal residences, such as the sprawling Windsor Castle and the now large Rue Reiligensis. Coltes was sprumming word. They meticulously examine old blueprints, fragmented royal inventories, and estate records from the period, hoping to find any cryptic annotations, coded messages, or unexplained omissions that might point to a secret storage location. The archives of monasteries and convents known to have received substantial royal patronage during Philippa's time are also scrutinized with painstaking detail as secure depositories for precious goods. During times of national crisis, the challenges inherent in this search are considerable. Many of Philippa's favored palaces and residences have been significantly altered, expanded, or even completely demolished over the centuries, leaving behind only fragmented foundations and sparse records. The damp climate of England is also a major concern. Even if found, the manuscripts could be severely damaged or completely decayed unless they were sealed in an exceptionally dry, airtight, and stable environment. However, the tantalizing possibility that a unique multi-volume Chronicle of King Arthur exists, potentially containing entirely new chapters or alternative interpretations, keeps the search alive with undiminished hope. Such a discovery would not only rewrite literary history, but also provide unparalleled insights into medieval English culture, the daily life of the court, the artistic practices of the era, and, crucially, the personal intellectual interests of a truly remarkable queen. Quest for Philippa of Hainault's royal manuscript, Car, continues a quiet and dedicated pursuit to unlock the literary. A treasure of words and art still waiting patiently beneath the earth, a silent testament to her enduring legacy. Number 3. Blanche of Castile's crown jewel of France. The early 13th century in France was a period defined by a delicate and often precarious stability, constantly threatened by rebellious and ambitious nobles, as well as the ever-present specter of foreign invasions. At the very heart of this volatile landscape stood Blanche of Castile, undoubtedly one of the most remarkable, formidable, and effective queens in the entirety of French history. Born in 1188, she carried within her the lineage of power, being the granddaughter of the legendary Eleanor of Aquitaine, from whom she clearly inherited a keen intellect, an iron will, and exceptional political acumen. As queen consort to Louis VIII, and then, even more significantly, as the powerful regent for her young son Louis IX, who would later be canonized as Saint Louis. Blanche wielded an immense amount of power, often surpassing that of many male rulers. She successfully put down numerous dangerous rebellions by recalcitrant French barons, skillfully negotiated crucial treaties with foreign powers, and vigorously defended the kingdom against English incursions, particularly when her son was still a minor. Her regency, which lasted for much of Louis IX's minority, was a profound testament to her unwavering devotion to her son and the French crown, her shrewd diplomatic abilities, and her unyielding resolve. She was a devout Catholic, known for her piety and commitment to justice, but she was also an incredibly practical, pragmatic, and remarkably effective ruler, tirelessly working to ensure the prosperity, security, and stability of France during a challenging. As regent, Blanche was the de facto ruler of France, and she took the responsibility of safeguarding the kingdom's assets with utmost seriousness and strategic foresight. The French crown jewels were not merely beautiful symbols of royalty. They were often vital instruments of statecraft, frequently pledged as collateral for enormous loans needed to fund wars or used to visibly display the king's immense wealth, prestige, and supreme authority to both his subjects and foreign potentates. Blanche was widely known for her meticulous and highly efficient management of the royal treasury, ensuring its solvency and security. Among the most significant items in the French royal regalia, documented in various chronicles, though often with a mysterious brevity, was a particular and legendary crown jewel, a magnificent sapphire known as the Star of Saint Denis. This was far more than simply a large gemstone. It was universally described as a sapphire of unparalleled size, almost the size of a pigeon's egg, and possessed of an exceptionally deep, luminous blue hue that seemed to pulse with an inner light. It was uniquely not set in any known crown or scepter, but was rather a loose individual jewel, considered a separate sacred object of immense symbolic and spiritual importance. It was said to have been part of the personal collection of Saint Denis, the patron saint of France centuries before, lending it an almost mythical aura. The gem was widely believed to bestow profound wisdom and divine protection upon its wearer, and by extension upon the entire kingdom itself. Historical chronicles mention it only rarely, but when they do, it is always with a profound reverence that suggests its unique, almost venerated status, setting it apart from other royal jewels which were more openly displayed. It was believed to be so ancient that its precise origins were lost in the mists of legend, some speculating it came from the distant East, others believing it was a miraculous gift from an angel. Blanche's regency, while ultimately successful in securing Louis IX's throne, was by no means peaceful or easy. Rebellions by powerful and ambitious French barons were frequent, widespread, and extremely dangerous, constantly threatening to destabilize the young King Louis IX's reign and undermine the very foundation of the monarchy. The most serious of these was the formidable Great Barons' War, which erupted in 1226 to 1227, a widespread and destructive uprising that explicitly sought to challenge and undermine Blanche's authority as regent. During such periods of intense internal strife and widespread chaos, the royal family and their most valuable assets were at constant and immediate risk of capture, destruction, or seizure. The Star of Saint Denis, being such a unique and symbolically potent object, would have been a prime target for any rebellious factions seeking to legitimize their claims by seizing royal insignia or simply to gain immense wealth and cripple the crown's resources. Blanche, renowned for her foresight, her extreme caution, and her unwavering determination, would have undoubtedly prioritized the protection of this unique sapphire above almost all else. Viewing it as a spiral, the enduring legend of the Star of Saint Denis posits that during the most tumultuous period of the Great Barons' War, as various powerful noble factions marched on Paris, and the royal court was forced to constantly move for station, fearing that the jewel could be captured, lost, or even desecrated amidst the widespread chaos, she ordered it to be secretly and discreetly removed from the relatively accessible royal treasury. It was then hidden in a location known only to herself and perhaps one or two of her most absolutely trusted, unshakable confidants. The intention was not simply to store it temporarily, but to truly conceal it, separating it entirely from the main royal treasury, which was often more accessible and therefore more vulnerable to enemy action. Some compelling theories suggest it was hidden not within a secular royal castle which might eventually fall, but perhaps in a monastic foundation she particularly trusted, one known for its impenetrable defenses, its remote isolation, and its unwavering loyalty to the crown. Other tales speak of it being concealed within a specially constructed secret compartment within the very walls of one of the royal churches in Paris, such as the magnificent Notre Dame Cathedral, both of which were heavily patronized and protected by the royal family. The location was likely chosen for its spiritual sanctity as much as its physical security, making it less likely to be plundered by those who respected religious sites. The secret, intended to be a temporary measure until stability returned, tragically became permanent, possibly due to the deaths of the few people who knew its precise whereabouts, or simply because it was eventually deemed too sacred to be brought back into public view, considered safer and more secure in its hidden sanctuary. Centuries later, the Star of Saint Denis remains one of France's greatest lost treasures, a phantom jewel that continues to tantalize and captivate historians, gemologists, and treasure hunters alike. The search for Blanche of Castile's crown jewel of France is an ongoing quest, fueled by the gem's legendary status, its immense potential value, and the sheer historical importance of finding such a profoundly symbolic object. Modern archaeological teams, often working in close collaboration with church authorities and historical conservationists, seeks to scan the ancient foundations and massive walls of medieval churches and cathedrals in Paris and its surrounding regions. Ground-penetrating radar and thermal imaging are employed to identify hidden voids, unusual structural anomalies, or sealed-off spaces within these ancient edifices that could potentially house such a treasure. Historians delve into the vast and complex archives of the French royal court, monastic orders, and even the Vatican, meticulously looking for any obscure references, coded messages, or unusual entries that might pertain to the gem's secret relocation. Architectural conservationists during extensive restoration projects on historic buildings remain acutely alert for any previously unknown chambers, sealed passages, or unexpected discoveries within the centuries. Old structures, the challenges facing this quest. Paris, much like Constantinople, has been continuously built upon, expanded, and modernized for centuries, burying older structures and countless secrets beneath its modern urban fabric. Many medieval buildings have suffered extensive damage from wars, revolutions, fires, and simply the inexorable passage of time, making systematic and non-invasive searching in court considerably difficult. However, the unique and highly specific descriptions of the Star of St. Denis, its enormous size, its particular luminous blue hue, and its legendary association with the patron saint of France, keep the hope alive and fuel the imagination. The discovery of such a gem would not only be a staggering financial find, but would also represent an unparalleled historical and cultural breakthrough, shedding new and profound light on the regalia, the spiritual beliefs, and the strategic genius of Blanche of Castile and medieval France. It would offer a tangible link to a period of French history shaped by one of its most remarkable queens. Quest for Blanche of Castile's crown jewel of France continues, a magnificent sapphire, shrouded in the mists of history, a silent and potent testament to the strength, cunning, and enduring secrets of a queen who protected her kingdom's most sacred jewel. Number 2. Matilda of England's Imperial Regalia of the Anarchy. The 12th century in England was a period of unprecedented turmoil and brutal civil war, starkly remembered as the Anarchy. This era of widespread chaos was a direct and devastating consequence of a profound succession crisis following the death of King Henry I in 1135, whose only legitimate son had tragically perished years earlier in a shipwreck. Henry I had, in a radical move for his time, designated his daughter Matilda as his rightful heir. Born in 1102, Matilda was no ordinary noblewoman. She was Empress of the Holy Roman Empire. Through her first marriage to Emperor Henry V, a truly powerful and politically in the sophisticated, demanding courts of Germany. When she returned to England to claim her birthright, she faced formidable and ultimately successful opposition from her cousin Stephen of Blois, who swiftly seized the throne. For nearly 2 decades, England was torn apart by relentless and bloody warfare between Matilda's loyal supporters, known as the Angevins after her father's House of Anjou, and Stephen's adherents, the Stephenides. Matilda was a relentless campaigner, a shrewd military strategist, and a figure of immense resilience and determination, though sometimes criticized by contemporary chroniclers for her perceived arrogance and inflexibility. Despite coming tantalizingly close several times, she was famously never formally crowned Queen of England, but she fought fiercely and tirelessly for her rightful claim to the very end. During this protracted and devastating period of internal conflict, both Matilda and Stephen would have possessed their own distinct sets of royal regalia and personal treasuries. These were not merely for ceremonial display, They were essential tools of power, legitimacy, and often practical currency to fund their respective war efforts. For Matilda, who was fighting to establish her disputed claim against an anointed king, her regalia would have held even greater and more critical symbolic weight. These weren't just ordinary crowns and scepters. They were the physical embodiment of her imperial status, from her first marriage and, crucially, her inherent undeniable right to the English throne. Stories, from the time passed down through various chronicles and oral traditions, describe her personal regalia as being distinct, incredibly magnificent, and uniquely reflecting her former imperial status. This included a rumored diadem of the Saxon kings, a crown said to have been passed down through centuries from the ancient Anglo-Saxon monarchs of England, intricately inlaid with deeply colored ancient garnets and exquisite gold filigree, symbolizing her direct and unbroken lineage to the earliest English throne. Another particularly intriguing rumored piece was a scepter of unity, described as a finely crafted silver staff topped with a large, perfectly clear crystal orb, intended to represent the indivisibility of the kingdom and its rightful rule under her singular authority. These items were not simply beautiful objects of immense material value. They were powerful tools of propaganda, visual affirmations of her legitimate claim, absolutely crucial for rallying and maintaining support among the populace. Accustomed to tammying, the anarchy was a time of almost constant movement, desperate sieges, and sudden unpredictable reversals of fortune for both sides. Matilda frequently found herself under siege in various castles, often narrowly escaping capture by her cousin Stephen's forces. For instance, in the pivotal year of 1141, she was famously trapped in Oxford Castle by Stephen's overwhelming forces during a harsh, freezing winter. In a dramatic escape, she famously dressed in white to blend with the snow, lowering herself down a wall and making her way to safety at Wallingford Castle. During such desperate moments, protecting her most vital possessions, particularly her imperial regalia, which served as the irrefutable validation of her claim, would have been paramount. Losing these sacred symbols would have been a catastrophic symbolic defeat, potentially demoralizing her loyal followers, bolstering Stephen's legitimacy, and perhaps even costing her the war. The enduring legend of Matilda's lost regalia suggests that during one of the most perilous and decisive moments of the anarchy, perhaps specifically during her desperate escape from Oxford Castle, or during another particularly danger, she made a critical decision to secure her most valuable personal regalia. This was not merely a temporary hiding place. It was a desperate, almost absolute measure to ensure these irreplaceable symbols of her legitimate claim would not fall into Stephen's Victorian, who could misuse them to further complicate the succession. It is theorized that the diadem of the Saxon kings and the scepter of unity were not just stored in a typical, relatively secure location within a castle treasury, but were specifically concealed in a way that would prevent their discovery even by those who might eventually control the territory. Some compelling theories suggest they were entrusted to a fiercely loyal monastic order in a remote, secluded abbey, perhaps hidden deep within a crypt, a sealed-off chapter-hallowed grounds of a church. Other captivating tales speak of them being buried in a specific unmarked location within the grounds of one of her most loyal strongholds, perhaps near the site of a significant battle or a personal victory, intended to be recovered only when she had firmly secured her throne. Constant and unpredictable shifts in control of territory during the anarchy meant that any hidden cache, however well concealed, could quickly become inaccessible or completely forgotten. As loyalties changed, strongholds fell, and key individuals died without revealing. Centuries later, the search for Matilda of England's imperial regalia of the anarchy continues to captivate and intrigue historians, archaeologists, and passionate medievalists. Finding The diadem of the Saxon kings and the scepter of unity would provide unprecedented and invaluable kinship, the nature of legitimacy. Of medieval kingship, the nature of legitimacy, in a turbulent ageship, and, crucially, the personal sturmend, yet ultimately uncrowned, rulers, England's most determined, yet ultimately uncrowned, rulers. Modern research efforts focus intently on the ruins of castles and abbeys that were known strongholds of Matilda's supporters, and areas where she frequently resided or fought battles. Archaeologists employ sophisticated techniques such as geomagnetic surveys and ground-penetrating radar to search for anomalies beneath ancient foundations, within the ruins of keeps, and around the remnants of gatehouses, looking for any indication of buried objects. Historians meticulously analyze contemporary chronicles written by monks and scribes, fragmentate monastic cartularies, and obscure legalicums from the period of the anarchy, desperately seeking any obscure references, coded messages, or unusual entraises that might point to a secret storage location. The very landscape of England, dotted with thousands of medieval ruins and archaeological sites, provides a vast but incredibly challenging canvas for this meticulous search. The challenges inherent in this quest are significant and numerous. Many of the sites from the anarchy were active battlegrounds, repeatedly besieged, destroyed, and rebuilt over time, or simply left to decay and crumble over centuries. The persistently damp climate of England also poses a major threat. Even if found any organic materials, such as the textiles often found in medieval regalia, would have long since decomposed, leaving only the more durable metallic and gem components. However, the tantalizing descriptions of the diadem of the Saxon kings, with its ancient garnets, and the scepter of unity, with its crystal orb, suggest that these metallic and stone components would likely survive. There are persistent rumors of a hidden vault beneath the ruins of Kenilworth Castle, a powerful Angevin stronghold, or a secret burial site within the hallowed grounds of Reading Abbey, where Henry I was buried and where Matilda had strong and significant connections. The very idea that these tangible physical symbols of a queen's desperate and unyielding fight for her birthright could still be hidden, bearing silent witness to one of the most turbulent and violent chapters in English history, fuels the ongoing quest with relentless hope. The value of such a find would be immense, not just for its material worth, but for its unparalleled historical significance, offering a direct, tangible link to a queen who almost but never quite became Queen of England. Quest for Matilda of England's Imperial regalia of the anarchy continues, a silent challenge from a determined empress, her symbols of power waiting for their ultimate discovery, perhaps beneath an ancient stone or a forgotten patch of earth. Number 1. Eleanor of Aquitaine's lost jewel of courtoisie. 12th century, truly belonged in many profound and undeniable ways to Eleanor of Aquitaine. Born around 1122, she stands as arguably the most powerful, influential, and modic woman of the entire European Middle Ages. Her life was an astonishing tapestry, woven with threads of power, high politics, vibrant culture, and perpetual controversy. She reigned first as Queen of France, then, even more significantly, as Queen of England, and held immense power as the Duchess of Aquitaine in her own right, controlling vast and incredibly wealthy territories in southern France. Her life was a breathtaking whirlwind that traversed continents and courts. She famously accompanied her first husband, Louis VII of France, on the arduous and often disastrous Second Crusade, scandalizing and inspiring in equal measure with her independent spirit and vibrant presence. She then, in a truly audacious move, divorced Louis, and within a mere 8 weeks married Henry Plantagenet, Duke of Normandy, who would soon become King Henry II of England. This strategic marriage dramatically reshaped the political map of Europe, uniting vast lands under the Angevin Empire. Eleanor was far more than a political figure. She was a fervent patron of the arts, a driving force behind the burgeoning concept of courtly love, chivalry, and refined behavior that swept across Europe. She was a mother to two future English kings, the legendary Richard the Lionheart and the often maligned King John. Her vibrant court in Poitiers was a renowned center of learning, music, and poetry, a true beacon of sophistication and cultural innovation in a world that could often be brutal and unrefined. Eleanor was famously extraordinarily wealthy, possessing an immense personal fortune and vast estates. Her personal treasures were as legendary and diverse as her own storied life. Her collection included exquisite jewels that shimmered with an inner fire, rare and luxurious textiles imprinted from distant lands, and precious artifacts gathered from across the length and breadth of Europe and the exotic Holy Land. These possessions were not merely ostentatious displays of wealth. They were profound expressions of her unique taste, her extensive diplomatic connections, and her deep pervasive influence on the cultural landscape of medieval Europe. Among her many storied and whispered about possessions, one item stands out in historical chronicles and persistent local legends: the Jewel of Courtoisie. This was far more than just a piece of jewelry. It was said to be a magnificent gold and enamel pendant, intricately shaped like a stylized rose, radiating an almost ethereal beauty. At its very center was an unusually large, perfectly faceted sapphire that shimmered with an uncanny inner light, seeming to capture and hold the very essence of clarity. What made it truly unique was not simply its astounding beauty or immense material value, but its profound symbolic significance. It was widely believed to have been designed or commissioned by Eleanor herself as the ultimate tangible concept of courtoisie, the complex medieval concept of courtly love, chivalry, noble behavior, and refined romantic ideals. The central sapphire was rumored to hold within its flawless depths a single perfectly preserved tear, perhaps a mythical tear of a knight, a lost lover, or even an embodiment of sorrowful devotion perpetually imbued with a spirit of pure and noble love. It was spoken of in hushed tones across the courts of Europe as the jewel that embodied the very essence of her cultural revolution, a tangible link to the ideals of chivalry that blossomed under her guiding hand. This jewel was rarely, if ever, displayed publicly, but was instead whispered about in the most exclusive courtly circles, an emblem of her personal philosophy and her unparalleled influence. Eleanor's long and eventful life was also marked by periods of profound political turbulence and deep personal sorrow. Her relationship with Henry II, initially passionate, became increasingly stormy, culminating in her virtual imprisonment for over a decade for her alleged involvement in a rebellion by her sons against their father. Later, as the powerful and revered Queen Mother, she was deeply involved in the complex and often brutal succession struggles between her beloved sons, particularly between her favorite, Richard the Lionheart, and his younger, more troublesome brother, John. These were times of relentless warfare, treacherous rebellion, political assassinations, and pervasive uncertainty. The Jewel of Courtoisie, with its utterly unique symbolic meaning and immense material value, would have been an object of particular concern during these periods of personal danger and widespread political upheaval. If it fell into the wrong hands, it could be used to mock, discredit, or humiliate her deeply held ideals, or simply be melted down for its material worth, its profound symbolism utterly lost. The enduring legend of the Jewel of Courtoisie suggests that during the most tumultuous period of her prolonged imprisonment under Henry II, or during the bitter and chaotic conflicts between her warring sons, Eleanor heard its careful and clandestine concealment. The primary intention was to protect it from being seized by Henry II's forces or by her other powerful enemies, and perhaps more importantly, to preserve it as an untarnished symbol of her enduring influence, her cultural ideals, and her personal legacy, even if she herself was held in confinement and her power seemed diminished. The secret hiding place was deliberately chosen to be obscure, known perhaps only to a handful of trusted individuals who may have died without ever revealing its precise location, taking the secret with them to their graves. Some compelling theories suggest it was hidden in a forgotten crypt or a sealed-off vault within the Abbey of Fontefraud, the powerful royal monastery where she eventually chose to be buried alongside Henry II and Richard the Lionheart. Others speculated might have been secretly spirited away and secreted within a remote defensible castle keep in her beloved Aquitaine, a region she knew intimately and trusted implicitly to guard her most prying eyes and grasping hands at the English court. The sheer emotional and symbolic weight of the jewel of courtoisie made its disappearance a deliberate act of profound preservation rather than a simple loss, a calculated decision to safeguard its essence. Centuries later, the jewel of courtoisie remains one of the most romantic, enigmatic, and stubbornly elusive lost treasures of the entire medieval world. The ongoing search for Eleanor of Aquitaine's lost jewel of courtoisie continues to inspire historians, art historians, medieval scholars, and even modern-day romantics. Locating it would not only be a staggering archaeological discovery of immense material value, but also an unparalleled and profound insight into the personal beliefs, the cultural impact, and the private world of Eleanor of Aquitaine. Modern researchers delve tirelessly into the vast and complex archives of royal households, powerful monastic orders, and aristocratic families intimately connected to Eleanor Sir Umina. Archaeologists employ advanced geophysical surveys and ground-penetrating data to explore the grounds and subterranean structures of known Plantagenet strongholds and, crucially, the religious institutions. They meticulously look for hidden chambers, sealed vaults, or unusual burial sites that could potentially contain such a precious and personally significant item. The challenges inherent in this monumental search are significant and numerous. Many of Eleanor's grand castles and palaces in both France and England have been extensively destroyed, rebuilt, or significantly altered over centuries, obliterating much of their original medieval layout. The specific location of the Abbey of Fontefraud, while remarkably well preserved as a historical site, is still an incredibly massive and complex architectural complex with many unexplored and unexcavated areas. However, the unique and highly specific description of the jewel of courtoisie, its distinct rose shape, the central sapphire with the preserved tear, and its direct, undeniable link to the profound concept of courtly love, makes it distinctly indecipherable. Should it ever be found, tantalizing possibility that such a profoundly symbolic object, representing an entire cultural movement championed by arguably the most powerful and influential woman of her age, could still be waiting patiently to be discovered, drive the continuing quest with unwavering passion. The discovery of Eleanor of Aquitaine's lost jewel of courtoisie would not only bring forth an object of immense historical and artistic value, but also provide a direct, tangible link to the ideals, the brilliance, and the enduring legacy. The search continues for this jewel, a shimmering echo of courtly love, hidden by the hands of a queen who shaped a continent and left an indelible mark on history.